According to PSN profiles, Monster Hunter Wilds is a pretty beefy game with an estimated completion time of 120 hours. Holy schmoly. Having played these games for the better part of 2 decades now, I can confirm that any Monster Hunter title will absolutely drain days, if not years, off your life in a vain attempt to earn virtual medals that ultimately amount to nothing. The ironic part is that Wilds is probably the easiest completion yet, though it'll still have you looking like the Crypt Keeper by the end of it. There's a nice round 50 trophies to earn and a lot of grinding to partake in, so let's get to it. Our story begins with a village being attacked by a mysterious monster draped in white fur and chain-like appendages. In a desperate attempt to ensure his adopted son's survival, Tashin pushes Nata through a small cave entrance leading to the outside world, ultimately leaving his fate up to the great unknown. This is where I would like to stop to inform you that none of these individuals have left their village for literally hundreds of years. Truly one of the parental guardians of all time. It's here where we reconvene with the Hunters Guild, who are exploring an area called the Forbidden Lands, an environment thought to be completely devoid of people for well over a millennia. Suddenly people. Like, a lot of people. What the fuck?
I lied.
Of course our party happens across Nata's unconscious self, with our new goal being to locate his hidden village inhabited by individuals known as the Keepers. But first, character creation. This is Ronnie Dean as Trusty Palico Gato. If only you knew what they've seen. Though there's a slight hiccup during our expedition when a pack of ravenous sand leviathans called Balahara try to devour yet another small solitary child. Doing what we do best, we end up rescuing her, and in the process her brother from a separate monster, the Chattacabra. Chattacabra is probably my favorite beginner monster this series has ever done. Normally they're pretty generic alpha raptors with their own posse of backup dancers, but here we get a toad who lifts. Very cool. What's also cool is that during this initial encounter I managed to snag a couple trophies. The first being to topple a monster after mounting it, stop. And the second for completing the quest by reuniting Nona with her brother Isai. After conversing with the two to get our bearings, I took this time to complete a few more quests to farm up some better gear, with one involving a big ass chicken trying to steal my meat. This is also when I decided to cook a meal on the portable grill for the first time for the trophy, Was It a Meal to Remember? I then quickly followed that up with another for making a well done steak. Fun fact, this is the only time I ever cooked a steak in my nearly 100 hours of playtime, since they constantly give you rations for free, ultimately making it a somewhat pointless endeavor for what I needed. It wouldn't be a VOD playthrough if I didn't completely ignore beneficial game mechanics. This also led me to messing around with some of the other newer mechanics implemented into Wilds, with one of them being the sneak attack. Speaking of which, another poor Chattacabra fell victim to Ronnie D's unstoppable lust for power, unlocking the hunt is on for completing my first field survey. How many trophies is that now? 6? Man, we are flying through these. Through a bit more story progression, we come across one of my personal favorite returning monsters, Congalala. Coincidentally, I also killed him while popping a wound, which is yet another new mechanic in Wilds. Essentially, you can decide to either pop wounds for a burst of damage or let them set for extra DPS on basic attacks, and for this particular encounter, doing so led me to earning Hit 'em Where It Hurts, since I had successfully landed 50 attacks on weak points while in focus mode. Ah, right, focus mode. Focus mode is just that, it lets you manually aim where your attacks will land, and is one of the coolest additions added to a Monster Hunter game in many, many years. So instead of winding up a true charged slash for the greatsword only for it to whiff on release, you can now charge the slash, do a complete 180, and still miss the monster. Very innovative. Slaying the pink menace left me a bit bedazzled, if you will. I was inspired by its magnificent smelly coat and yearned for an outlet. Utilizing this new bout of spontaneous creativity, I talked to the pop-up Camp Meowster in order to customize the various camps scattered throughout the Scarlet Forest, and you'll never guess what happened next. I should also mention that in between important story beats, I'd been accepting side missions that popped up from time to time. These are a little bit different from your typical assigned quests, as they are received from speaking with certain individuals throughout the Forbidden Lands. One in particular was from this very enthusiastic fisher lady, and completing her request actually gave me 2 trophies, since one was earned for catching my first fish, and another for completing my first side mission. Very cool. Almost as cool as this cute little crab with a coin glued to his back that I found while exploring some nearby caves. Thankfully, this is only one of 2 rare endemic life forms that need to be found for their own respective trophies, unlike the litany of others we had to scour the lands for in previous titles. Making our way back to the Windward Plains, we discovered that the usually solitary Doshagama have started rallying around a single alpha. This obviously bears bad news for Isai's village because
apes together, strong!
Seeing many potential casualties in the not-so-distant future, Ronnie D swiftly cuts down the alpha, earning our very first Gold Crown Large monster. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like a metric that's all that important, so I'm sure it won't matter in the future. Upon returning to the partially destroyed village, we are given the option to fully customize our sacred, which I happily do. This is Pepe. I love him. To absolutely no one's surprise, a problematic monster has now started harassing the locals within the Scarlet Forest, except this time it's an apex known as Uthduna. Big fuck fish. I actually really like this monster, as both its design and theme are super reminiscent of old-timey kaiju flicks. I don't know, something about it just screams Godzilla to me. Can't quite put my finger on it though. Repelling the beast initially seems like a fat W, though shortly thereafter yet another monster swoops in for the kill-steal bastard, while simultaneously giving Nata some rather unfortunate PTSD. Why doesn't he just not think about it? Is he stupid? Eagle-eye viewers will recognize this invader as the same individual who wiped out Nata's home and has been given the chilling moniker, the White Wraith. Nobody actually cares about that though, because more importantly, trophy! Yippee! Seeing as this new target had caught Ronnie D's ire, we quickly make after it, which happens to lead us to a new area known as the Oil Well Basin. Here we can find all sorts of exotic fauna like Big Monkey and Real Life Nightmare. After ridding the world of such terrible, just truly horrific creatures, we hear of stirrings, once again, within the Windward Plains that has caused the sand tide to return earlier than expected and with a vengeance. You know, it's really lucky we just so happened to arrive during all of these super bizarre anomalous events that have never occurred until now. Not so lucky for the Apex though, as the White Wraith has decided to target it in order to absorb all of its elemental energy. For what purpose? We don't know. Nata, upon seeing this, berates Ronnie D, essentially calling us incompetent, rude, and would like to throw hands at the Wraith. Why didn't he just stop it the first time it showed up? Is he stupid? But uh-oh, Ray Dow's death was greatly exaggerated, and now he's here to test how many joules it takes to vaporize the human body. Probably should have been more concerned about the effects of blunt force trauma. Now I could rehash every single story beat for you, though doing so would be a little redundant, as Monster Hunter tends to follow a very predictable formula when it comes to its narratives. Typically, its problematic monster shows up, monster is dealt with, though it turns out there was a bigger monster that was the real problem all along. Oh my god, who could have seen this coming? Rinse, repeat, you have every Monster Hunter game ever. Except, this time we're about halfway through, they throw a curveball your way and introduce artificially made beings that are unable to eat due to atrophied esophagi, cannot breed due to lack of Pinor, and live forever unless killed. Man-made horrors beyond our comprehension have entered the chat. So Arkveld, the monster from the opening cutscene, is one of these guardian constructs that has gone absolutely bonkers due to its ability to absorb elemental energy. Energy that has begun to revert its body back into the origin species, causing an overwhelming desire to eat, which then culminates into it going on a bloodthirsty rampage, having to be put down Old Yeller style. Nata thinks it's okay though, because it finally got to choose something for itself instead of being a mindless tool. Is he stupid? But what about the Keepers, Vod? What's their role in all of this? Well, the Keepers are remnants of an ancient civilization called Wyaria, who used a powerful limitless energy source called wyvern milk, why did you call it that, to create these crimes against nature in order to utilize their specific traits to aid their civilization, while also creating an organic machine called the Dragon's Torch to control the fucking weather around their kingdom. Why stop there though? Why not go even further? Let's play God. So for some reason lately, the Dragon's Torch has been acting a little odd, being a regular goof, if you will. It's not following the typical seasonal programming. The reason for this is because Wyveria's ultimate construct, known as Zoshia, has set up shop at the base of the torch and is siphoning off all of the energy in order to fuel its own evolution. Oh fuck. Zoshia isn't your typical construct either. It is a completely artificial creation utilizing multiple monsters' DNA as a weapon to equal the playing field against more powerful enemies, possibly even dragons. Understanding that Zoshia is what wiped out Wyaria to begin with and will undoubtedly destroy the surrounding lands if left unchecked, Ronnie D takes this opportunity to, respectfully, mog everyone else with an insane aura farm and pull off the biggest Nide win in history. It also turns out that Zoshia wasn't just made from any old monsters Wyaria could get their grubby little hands on. It was in fact the worst possible few you could pick from. You thought it was the equal dragon weapon, but it was actually I. Timu Fatalis. So yeah, along the journey we fought tons of cool Apex monsters, New Udra being my favorite, put Arkveld out of its misery, and stopped a Guardian Fatalis from possibly fully regenerating itself and killing everything in sight. All's well that ends well, and there were 8 trophies in total unlocked for both regular and post-story content. If you're curious about the post-story stuff, it's basically just for ultimate fan service. The Dragon's Torch gets a weak hold, it's cause of gore, we kill it, problem solved, yippee. That is far from the end of this adventure though, as there are still plenty of trophies yet to be earned, so here's a quick lapse of some of the easier ones. Campmaster for establishing 10 pop-up tents. Hunters United for finally partaking in a multiplayer quest. Newly forged bonds for following someone. I followed this person in particular because they have an amazing profile with 100% completion. Impregnable defense. Why are they trying to impregnate me? For crafting at least 5 pieces of level 8 gear. I just made Arkvelds because... drip. And finally Gossip Hunter for stocking 30 hunter profiles. Since I'm mainly a solo player, it was going to be a while yet before I earned the trophy for going on 100 quests with other players, so I took this time to wrap up more of the side missions, starting with our favorite fisher lady. One of her missions required us to catch a whopper. A whopper is a fish that is far larger than usual and involves a whole separate minigame in order to be caught. Basically, they only go for certain bait types, and it's up to the player to coerce them into biting. Once hooked, it's then a matter of properly managing line tension so it can be successfully worn down and eventually reeled in. People online were saying this was damn near impossible, but I genuinely have no idea what they're talking about. It's actually pretty easy to catch whoppers, especially the tunas and Goliath squid, which you need to catch for yet another trophy anyways, so all I did was reset the area when I ran out of fish and managed to catch 30 whoppers in under an hour. There was also another side mission that involved capturing a rare endemic life form called a sandstar. This one can be a little tricky to initially track down as it only spawns during the time of plenty, at night, within the Windward Plains. Though unbeknownst to quite a few people, these things are actually extremely easy to catch once spotted. All you gotta do is hit it with a sonic bomb. That's it. Next up was to complete an investigation. Investigations are quests that you can make yourself by highlighting a monster on the map and choosing the create quest option. This is genuinely an amazing way to farm for materials, as any of the rewards that are seen in the map menu transfer over to the investigation itself. So farming for gems or other rarer items gets infinitely easier and is a godsend if you tend to make multiple different weapon types. Doing all of this extra content also led me to earning a bunch more trophies like Monster Slayer, which is given for taking down 100 large monsters. Bourgeois Hunter for having a million Zenny on me. Capture Pro for capturing 50 monsters. Someone Worth Following for having good old Gato with us for 100 quests. East to West A Hunter Never Rests, which is for completing 30 side missions. And finally Monster PhD, marking our success for hunting every large monster available. I know that was a lot to take in, stop, but this is to be expected as quite a few trophies in Monster Hunter are typically progression based. These are all rewards that will be earned naturally as you simply play the game. Now, it's time to dive into some of the more involved trophies that require active pursuit from the player. First up is Explorer of the Eastlands, a reward obtained by collecting 10 different special items of rarity 6. What the fuck does that even mean? When accessing your overworld map, you may notice different events occurring in specific areas based on certain time frames or weather conditions. One of these can be called an emergence. It's during these emergences that the items we're looking for will spawn. For example, in the Windward Plains, the Great Windward Aloe emergence can occur, which allows us to collect the Great Windward Aloe. In the Scarlet Forest, it'll be a Remarkable Relic emergence, granting us access to bulky treasure, or some others like the Magnificent Fossil emergence can happen in many different areas. There are more than 10 Rarity 6 items that exist, though that doesn't mean it won't necessitate the collection of more annoying materials. Noteworthy items include Queen's Bloom Pollen, Nightflower Pollen, and Wyvern Sprout. You might as well cross this one off the list, as exploiters pretty much fucked achievement hunters here since Capcom overcorrected with a patch to the point where I'm convinced this thing no longer spawns correctly. What you're supposed to do is set the environment to either plenty or fallow and then wait for it to transition from dusk to night while having a full moon present. But I did this shit numerous times and nothing ever happened. It was quite frustrating. So instead I went with the Wyvern Sprout, which is infinitely easier to obtain since all you gotta do is go to the Windward Plains and kill every Sarantanoth in sight, wait a few minutes for them to decay, and then collect the inevitable mushrooms that spawn from their corpses. As for Queen's Bloom, it can be easily obtained by setting the Scarlet Forest to plenty and hitting up the pop-up tent in between areas 2 and 6, as it quite literally spawns right above it. Here's where things become rather unpleasant. Granted, a couple bonus trophies did grace my system for crafting a level 8 Ardian weapon along with 4 additional level 8 weapons, however this gesture of goodwill shall not compensate for the inevitable degeneration of one's sanity. I had very briefly mentioned crowns earlier, and this is where the massive time sink for collecting them rears its ugly head. Crowns indicate whether a monster is much larger or smaller than what is typically seen. For some reason there's a silver crown that indicates it wasn't quite a gold crown large, while the same does not exist for almost being small enough. So you have this one crown type that literally does nothing but piss you off for being completely useless. Again, I've been playing for decades and I could not tell you what their purpose is other than being quite literally rage bait. Like, what the fuck is this, Capcom? Thankfully, the hunt for crowns has been expedited considerably as we can now use the binoculars to check if the monster we're looking at is in fact a crown, and you're even given a trophy for spotting one this way. Additionally, we can even save crowns to help out others since again investigations lock in all rewards as well as monster sizes for said quests. No more bullshit or second guessing sizes, no more wasting time fighting monsters only for it to not be a crown, just straightforward yes or no visual feedback. Thank God. So my strategy was to essentially run through every single map, scout each monster's size, lock it in if it was a crown, and after a few were stocked, hunt them down to add to the collection. Once it became a more targeted approach, I would rest until a certain monster shows up, scout it. If it's not a crown, I would quit to the main menu without saving because doing so would re-roll the area including all monster sizes. This is so much faster than the older methods I could cry. That doesn't mean it won't take a crazy amount of time though, as there are still 26 monsters that require 2 crowns each, and crowns are still on the rarer side, with current estimations being around a 1 to 3% spawn rate for large and much less for minis. Holy poop, minis. I swear on everything that is holy, I never want to see this fat fucking fish ever again. But I did it. I endured. Since I was still missing a bunch of crowns for the Apex monsters, as well as the trophy for slaying 50 of them, along with 50 tempered monsters, and partaking in 100 online quests, I made sure to launch an SOS flare whenever I eventually tracked down a crown tempered Apex so others could join in the hunt. Thankfully, my patience did eventually pay off, as slowly but surely I unlocked all the remaining rewards, with my final being Mini Crown Master from a Fulgur Anjanath, which of course allowed the Platinum to finally pop. I genuinely think this is a great game that has unfortunately been marred by brain-dead business decisions made by Capcom Corporate. It obviously launched way too early, and even now runs abysmally on everything, especially PC. It is unforgivable. Personally, I still like Iceborne the most, as I feel like it nailed that balance between classic and modern titles better than Sunbreak and Wilds has, but that's just my personal opinion, right? As I could easily see others preferring Sunbreak or Wilds to it. If for whatever reason you are interested in finally completing a Monster Hunter title, this is absolutely the one to do it in, as a lot of the more annoying trophies, crowns, have been streamlined considerably, which obviously leads to a way smaller time commitment. It actually only took me just over 80 hours to complete, and that's with getting all the extra crowns that weren't necessary as well. All I'm missing at this point is the mini crown for Lagiacrus, which I will eventually need to earn for the inevitable Master Rank expansion. For the nearly 20 extra hours I put into the game were me basically just playing it for fun. Because I think it's good. I think it's fun. Though, again, it would be real nice if it looked and played as well as Iceborne does on the PS5. Just saying. Anyways, that's about it for this video. I don't feel like talking about this game anymore, so I'm gonna stop now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!